Ask the Dean, episode 69. We are here. We have made it. We continue to come every week here now on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern for everyone to come and enjoy hopefully come and enjoy our banter back and forth. Before I introduce my fellow co-hosts and guests, and you're not guests, you're co-hosts. I was talking to a student yesterday who's like, I've watched every Ask the Dean, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you have to struggle with that, but
you're not tired of our shooty jokes.
He apparently enjoyed it. So we're here again with my Mapped co-founder Rachel Grubbs. How are you today?
I'm excellent. It's raining, which for me is the best. So windows wide open, Rachel happy.
Nice. And our newest Mapped advisor, Verinia Granum, former assistant dean of advising and STEM advising at Hofstra University.
That is correct.
And now an amazing advisor here at Mapped. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. We're better than Netflix, so that's all right.
Better than Netflix.
Cheaper too.
It's a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I love that we've made such an impact on students.
Nice. So as we continue to go here, we have last but not least the marvelous Dr. Scott Wright, former director of TMD SAS, executive director, now filled by one of our amazing good friends, but we won't mention because I don't know if it's public yet. So we won't mention the name, but we have a new exciting friend over there. And how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Just we're right on the edge of fall here in Central Texas, and I'm really excited about that. I have my hoodie on today in honor of the turning of the weather, so I'm excited.
Nice. All right. Well, we are here to answer your questions. That is our job. Again, we're the Mapped team. If you don't know what Mapped is comprised of Mapped app, which is our software technology platform, helping students track everything that they do as a pre-med student and now as a pre-PA student as well. And at some point in the future, all of the pre-health fields. And we also have Mapped Advising, which is something that a lot of students utilize to help with essays, interview prep, etc. And you can also get at a lower cost, a more affordable cost for many people, Mapped Advising inside of Mapped at, which is a chat feature that you can check out. So with all of that said, let's go ahead and jump in, get some questions going.
Absolutely.
Our first question: if I sent in my secondary on the very first day possible, but haven't heard anything still, and others who applied after got interviews, is that a bad sign? Dr. Wright, what do you think about that?
Well, I think this is something that pre-med students love to do: overanalyze, overthink everything. And I don't think you can make any judgments about anything relative to a review process at a medical school. You just have to sit back and wait. It's not a good sign. It's not a bad sign. It is what it is. So
Just is.
just got to relax, let things play out, and see what happens. But no, I don't think it's necessarily a bad sign.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, in some ways, this is the hard part, right? You did the work, and now you have to wait.
Yep.
Trust.
Patience, as they say, is a virtue, apparently.
Yep.
It's hard. It's hard. This is, I think, one of the most frustrating parts of the application cycle, because you have done everything that you can do. You have done everything expected of you. You have taken the MCAT. You've taken all of your classes. You've asked for letters of recommendations. You've filled out your primary application. You've paid all of that money to the wonderful AAMC. You've filled out all of the secondary essays. And now there's nothing more that you can do. And that is very frustrating. And it's very anxiety provoking for many, because you have to rely on someone else. And because there's what many consider this like veil of secrecy around this whole process, something that we try to demystify here every week, that you don't know what's going on. How are they looking at my application? Are they even looking at it? Did it pass the filters? Who's going to look at it? What are they going to look at first? Am I good enough? Am I good enough? Am I good enough? And then you go and see on Student Doctor Network, people that applied after you are getting interview invites, etc. And it's just, it sucks. But
Yeah.
you just got to hope that you've put in the work to the best of your ability, and you have to understand that that's all that you can do at this point.
Yep. And I will hasten to add to that, Ryan, that that the worst thing that you can do at this point is start comparing yourself to your friends and to those on Student Doctor Network and all that. You know, you don't know if they're telling the truth or not. You don't know anything about them. You know you, and that's all you can do. So do not compare yourself to when they submitted or what their scores were or whatever. That is a no-win game right there.
The hardest part is done, right?
Yep.
You got through to this point. Now it's just, it's kind of beyond your control at this point. Just watch us. Come watch Ask the Dean with us and relax.
So maybe pick up meditation.
Oh, good idea.
I got to plug it early.
So Scott, going to something you said about going on Student Doctor Network, are they even telling the truth? I always tell this story, and I don't know if you were standing there with me at this conference in Toronto where we met for the first time in person. It was, I think it was BU's Dean of Admissions was telling the story how they follow the threads on Student Doctor Network, and they're always checking in, seeing what students are saying. And she was talking about, she was checking it one day. I don't know if it was very recently to when we were at that conference, but she said that somebody had posted like, "Hey guys, I finally got my interview invite today to this school." And she's like, "We didn't send out interview invites today." So you never know, right? You just never know what people are doing on those threads.
That's right.
That's so true.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised. I remember I used to look at those threads, and it not always possible, but sometimes I could figure out which applicant it was by things that they would say and where they went to school or whatever. And so I could figure it out who they were. And I knew that they were, not being completely forthright. And,
here, regular private eye over there.
Oh yeah, it wasn't that hard. Let me tell you, it was not that hard.
Yeah, age of the internet. It's the world is smaller than people think.
Oh yeah.
Be careful what you post.
Yep.
All right. Well, back to questions. One that's kind of related.
So how long after interviews should you typically expect to hear from schools about an acceptance or rejection? So after interviews, ideally, the medical school is telling you on interview day, expect to hear from us XYZ, right? Or they'll let you know when their admissions committees meet. Is it every couple of weeks? Is it like 2 big admissions committee meetings throughout the whole cycle? Ideally, they tell you on interview day. If they don't, that kind of stinks. And unfortunately, it's just every school is going to be different because the admissions committee tempo is going to be different for every medical school. Now, unfortunately, this is post-interview, so it's a little bit different. Pre-interview, I'll tell you, unfortunately, it seems like the far majority of schools just don't say anything to students. I wish that were better, and it's maybe something as we grow as a team and it can advocate a little bit more for students and have more outreach to schools, is we can say, hey, like one of the biggest frustrations, and I'm sorry, I'm very nasally, I have a cold. One of the biggest frustrations that we see with students is just lack of communication later and later and later in the cycle. So like just send an automated email to say, like, we ain't looking at you, kid. Move on.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And and I think that it varies by school, certainly, but it also varies by, my feeling is that DO schools are sometimes a little bit more forthright with schedule, a schedule of, you're going to hear from us within the next 2 weeks or whatever. And MD schools often are a little bit more, flexible with that, and they don't really give you a whole lot of information. There are some traffic rules about that with the AAMC that affect when they can start sending out offers and stuff. But generally speaking, I would say you can't really, you may not know the answer to that question, which I know is frustrating for students, but you may not know.
Yeah, and just to expand on that, the traffic rules that you're talking about, MD schools from the AAMC, do Texas schools follow that same traffic rules?
Yes, they do.
MD schools outside of early decision is separate, but MD schools cannot offer acceptances until October 15th every year.
Right.
So unfortunately, that's just a thing. I don't know why that's a thing. Maybe we can break it down later on, but that's just a thing.
I don't either. Okay.
Let's see. We got a typical, is it clinical? It's a two-parter, but
soon you'll be able to go to isitclinical.com.
Yep.
I'm a surgical technologist and full-time student, second year in community college. I'm planning to transfer next fall. I'm a reserve soldier. I'm wondering if my job, I just lost it there, as a surgical technologist,
and then
would
part
count
two
as
is
clinical experience and shadowing because I work with a surgeon every day. Yeah. So that's the question. Surgical technologist. So if you don't know what a surgical technologist is, typically a surgical tech, as we call them, not a technician, a technologist, is someone who basically is in the operating room, is scrubbed in, and is in charge of all the tools. And when the surgeon says scalpel, right, just the stereotypical kind of scalpel, the surge tech usually is the one that's handing all the tools to the surgeon, getting all the tools back, making sure everything's organized, making sure that we're not missing anything, and if something's left inside of a cavity somewhere. That is 1,000,000% clinical experience.
Oh, absolutely.
1,000,000%.
Yep.
I wouldn't call it shadowing, though.
No.
Because you are in the thick of it the whole time, working as a clinical person. So there are potential positions where some of it's clinical, some of it's shadowing. What you're doing, I would say, is 1,000% clinical and not shadowing.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah.
all right.
And if you're a pre-med student or a medical student, listen to the surge techs because they run the show. That and the nurse rotating around in there is they're the bosses in there.
Yep.
Nice.
A school did not invite me to an interview, but said I was on hold for a re-review. Is it good or bad or just is? They're picking up your language, Scott.
Julie,
Yep.
I commend you for listening. I think you posted that as we were talking about some of the other things. So you're absorbing. Good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is not an unusual situation. I think that it is not either good nor bad. I agree that it is what it is. And I think that, it's certainly better than a rejection. But I think, again, it's this, you got to sit back and wait and see what happens.
Deep breathing, long, slow exhales. All right. Ooh, planning ahead for next year.
Does the personal statement have to be exactly 5,300 words? Is 5,000 okay? So I will say it most definitely should not be 5,300 words because that is way too many. 5,300 characters is a much better length that you want to use.
Yes. Good point, Ryan.
Ryan, you passed the reading test.
Cars section, yes. So just a clarification, it's always this thing, and for secondaries, it's very important because some are character based, some are word based. For the application for AMCAS and ACOMAS, 5,300 characters, not words. So is 5,000 okay? Brittany, what do you think?
I think the general rule of thumb we've always told students, or my previous position, I would tell students, you want to make it so that it's not, so that it's at least 5,000, right? So you want to be at that sort of general number. You don't want to make it less than that. 5,300 is okay. And it's really not a lot of characters when you think about it. So you'll find that when you're at your first attempt, you'll end up with way, way more than this. And then as you start whittling it down, as long as you're in that 5,000 range, not, anything less than that, I think it's fine.
Yeah, that's true. I think a lot of people, that initial draft is sort of a brain unloading. And that's why in the Mapped app, if you're using the Mapped web-based application, we've got application simulator. We've got all the essay prompts that you're going to see in the applications. And there's a character counter, but it allows you to go way over, because we know you're probably going to hit 6,000, 7,000 on that first attempt.
Right.
Yep.
That's normal.
Yep.
Get it all out. That first time, you don't want to edit yourself. You just want to
Just brain dump.
All right. International.
My name is Charity. Moved from Kenya. Jambo habari yako. To the U.S., New Hampshire last week. I'm 19 and wish to start pre-med. Is there a way I can reach out to you guys to advise me? So Jambo, welcome. I've been to Kenya. I speak a couple words of Swahili, and that's about all I got. So that's awesome. Rachel, how can people work with us?
Well, so first of all, right here, Ask the Dean every week free. So always feel free to take advantage of this. Lots of other free resources at medical school headquarters. If you're looking to invest in some one-on-one assistance, we do have one-on-one advising, which I put the link up on the screen for those of you that are watching, map.com services. That'll take you to all the different one-on-one options we offer. And then we also have Application Academy, which is group advising. So a little more economical, a little less personal.
And more specific to the application cycle.
Right. As opposed to your starting of the pre-med, which Charity, you had said you are. And then what I think is a really great option for someone like Charity, who's early in the process, is the Mapped app. So I had mentioned that before. I think Ryan's, well, actually I'll add it, about to do some screen share. So if you go to map.com, you don't need the services for what I'm talking about right now. So I'll take that off the screen. We have this web-based application that is essentially a pre-med tracker. So Charity, for you, I don't know how familiar you are with the pre-med process. You might actually start with the roadmap. And what that is if you kind of tell us where you are in your college career or post-collegiate career, we can help you map out the steps for each year, all the way, from taking your biology and chemistry, which is early in the pre-med process, all the way up to applying to and getting into med school. And then this whole app is a tracker. So lets you know what you need to know, let you know when to do it, and then helps you track your progress. And you'll track your courses, your grades, you'll track the activities that you do. You can research med schools. And then here, Ryan's showing you the feedback tab right now. We will give you some feedback as you go. And this is, automated things, but personally written by We4, by the advising team. So we're going through mapped files, looking for patterns of success or potential stumbling blocks, and then telling the system anytime you see student with XYZ factors, send out these messages. So you're getting the benefit of our expert advice by using this Mapped app. And that is less than the cost of Netflix. So $8 a month or $80 a year. Save 2 months if you buy a year at once. And for someone like you, you can start using it now, and it'll just guide you through the pre-med process for the next 3 years or so.
Yeah, and let me also hasten to add that on Wednesday, October the 13th, at 4 p.m. Eastern time, we are going to have a workshop specifically for freshmen, for first-year college students. And it's going to really emphasize a lot of things that you can start doing now as a first-year college student that can help you in this pathway. So just heads up about that.
Yeah, and I do not have a dedicated URL up for that just yet. It's actually on my to-do list for today or tomorrow. But if you just go to map.com and sign up for our newsletter, you'll get a heads up for me whenever we have free events.
Yep.
So map.com is the place to start.
Absolutely.
Thanks for asking, Charity. You set us up for stuff we like to tell students about anyway.
Good luck, Charity.
Welcome to the United States.
Yes.
I am
Awesome.
super pro-immigrant.
Me too.
Having been an immigrant and then coming back, because I was lucky enough to have the choice to go away and stay and come back. I'm pro-travel. Okay, so this one is a two-part, and it's my fault. It's because I pasted poorly.
If you get accepted into a school and place your deposit, but then you get accepted into another school, can you instead go to the second school? I know the first deposit
will not be refunded.
But I want to know if placing a deposit is considered a matriculation. No, it is not.
Matriculation means enrollment. So you would that basically means you have signed up and you have started attending classes, or at least orientation. But this is a very common question, when it comes to the later part of the process. Absolutely, you have choice. You have the choice, and just because you put a deposit down does not mean you're locked into that school. It does typically mean you're going to lose your money.
Yeah.
And particularly for some of the DO schools, that's a hefty amount of money. Can be thousands of dollars. But you're making your decision about where you want to spend the next 4 years. You make the right decision that's based on you. In the grand scheme of things, $2,000 or whatever is a drop in the bucket in terms of what you're going to be facing for the next 4 years. So be wise in your choices. But yeah, you can definitely go to that second acceptance school.
And I would just add, if you are fortunate enough to have multiple acceptances, you want to think it through. Obviously, pick the school that's going to be the right fit for you, but try to do that sooner rather than later, so that once you notify the other schools that you're not coming there, they can open up those slots to other people who are waiting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the sooner the better.
It's good advice.
Yeah. As the kids these days say, putting in that deposit is not putting a ring on it.
Right. That's right.
Is that what they say?
Yep.
If you like it, then you better put a ring on it.
Yeah.
You're not going to sing, are you?
Yeah, that song's like 9 years old.
I
know. All right. Let's see. Where did I go? Sometimes I just have a lot of tabs open.
All right. As a non-trad with 3 prior years of banking experience, how would or should I attack letters of rec? 1 or 2 from my banking supervisors, 1 from an undergrad finance, and 2 from post-bac science profs. What should Spencer do here? Rachel, what do you think? I'm gonna let Rachel answer one. I'm gonna let you. No, I mean, I'm gonna pick on you this time. Or pick you, not pick on you.
Yeah, so this is interesting because some schools will specifically say that that they're fine with work experience, especially if there's non-traditional. So I think Ohio State, for example, most schools want to see two letters from science professors, but some schools will specifically say, yeah, a banking supervisor is great. And then others are going to stipulate that they really want everything to be focused in academia. So for you, Spencer, I mean, that work experience is definitely in your favor, but and it's going to come up in other things, other essays, other conversations. But for the letters of rec, you've got some research ahead of you. You need to start thinking about what med schools you're potentially interested in, even if it's, a ways away, and start looking at what they require, because you most likely are going to need to, I'm going to sneeze, make friends with your post-bac science profs so that you can start to round up those academic letters.
Good. Yeah, good advice.
Oh, the sneeze went away. Awesome.
Yay.
Let's see.
Apparently in Russian tradition, if someone sneezes after you say something, that means it's true.
Oh, interesting.
Huh. Well, there you go.
Nice. There we go.
How are students chosen for early decision, especially at Texas schools?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that most of the schools that have early decision programs, Texas Tech is the one that comes to mind, is that they're looking for a connection to Texas Tech. They're looking for a connection to West Texas, to what they offer. So they're looking for very stable, clear connections. This is the school I want to go to school. This is the medical school I want to go to. I've always known that. Here's the reasons behind that, et cetera. So they're looking for those connections to see that you're really committed to going to their particular institution.
All right. Does being a pharmacy technician qualify as clinical experience? Is it clinical.com coming soon? Given that you interact with patients. I know it isn't shadowing. Also, thank you, Dr. Gray. I've been watching you since high school. Hey, Sarah. So unfortunately, my stance on this is pharmacy tech is not clinical experience. It's a retail job. It just happens to be doling out medical stuff to people who are coming in.
Yeah, agreed.
So that's my stance. A lot of people put pharmacy tech on their application and put it as clinical, and the medical schools will decide for themselves what they want to do. So
that's right. Yep.
All right.
So I have a follow-up question to that. I'm sorry. If the pharmacy happens to be within the hospital setting itself, and the pharmacy tech is running medications to patients back and forth, would that make a difference?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think so.
Bringing the medication there.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
I was thinking about that too, about the way different pharmacies are staffed, because at some pharmacies, really only the pharmacist does patient counseling. And at some pharmacies, the techs do. Which is part of why whenever we get in is it clinical made, it will not be about job titles. We won't be very interested in that. We might collect it just to see what job titles are driving the questions, but we're only going to be asking you to make the decision about whether or not it's clinical on what you do, not what you say your job is. We want to know what the actual work is.
Right. Exactly.
All right.
does it look bad that my science GPA consists of only the course recs and one upper division science class, biochem, under my belt? I was a non-STEM major and discovered I wanted to be pre-med late in the game. No, so it's very standard for non-science majors.
Yep.
That's the name of the game. Do what you need to do and move on.
That's right. In fact, Haley, our good friend Caleb Marsh at Temple, at the Temple University Postbac program, is in the process of writing his dissertation, his doctoral dissertation, about this very topic, about the likelihood of admission based on undergraduate major, whether you're science or non-science. And I think what he's finding is it's yet to be seen what the results are going to be, but in essence, what I think he's going to find is that you're in good shape just because you've just got the prereqs and biochem. Medical schools are really going to look and see, but all the evidence thus far that I know about says that there's really no difference between science and non-science majors in terms of your performance in medical school. I think you're going to be fine, and med schools are not going to disadvantage you in that process.
Yeah, there's a reason those courses are required, because those are the ones you need.
Yep.
Interesting side note, there are studies published by the AAMC that show that humanities majors tend to score better on the MCAT. And what that often comes down to is critical reading skills. And I'm not talking about talent, I'm talking about skills, right? If you're always working on your critical reading skills, then using them on the MCAT comes to you a little more naturally than someone who's been focused on science and math skills. But the MCAT's supposed to be an indicator of performance, and yet gap there, which is why we say major in what you like.
Yeah.
The MCAT is hard, and the MCAT is important. And to do well on the exam, it matters how you prep and not just how much.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay, Rob Franek. I like Rob. I used to work with Rob, but yeah, that is so annoying. Good person, bad commercial.
This the subject of nightmares for many. Devin asks, do you know if some MD schools automatically give interview invites to legacies? So we haven't got many legacy questions. I got an interview invite from my dad's alma mater, but this school initially seemed way out of my reach. Was wondering y'all's thoughts. I love this question because I love talking about how reach just is not a thing.
Right.
I hate this word. And Rachel, you have a lot of background in the college admissions world as well, and you've talked about how this is very much a holdover from college admissions. Talk about that.
Yeah, reach is a thing in college admissions, which is why I think so many pre-meds ask about it, because I mean, I'm generalizing, but a lot of pre-meds were pretty well informed about the college admissions process, right? So there are 4,000 U.S. colleges and universities, 7,000 if you count all the post-secondary institutions, things like hair design or whatever. So when you have that many, yes, there's going to be some that are a match based on stats, some that your stats are so much better than that they are considered a little bit of a safety, and then some that are a reach, like the classic examples, the Ivies. With Ivies, amazing stats don't get you in. Amazing stats just mean you're now qualified to even try, right, to apply. But med schools are different. So there's 236 MD and DO, I think, off the top of my head, somewhere in there, 200 odd. So not nearly as many medical schools. And really all US med schools are really high quality, right? So there's definitely no such thing as a safety. In a world where 40 to 50% of applicants get in, no schools are safeties, right? No one's got an amazing, easy shot. It just doesn't work like that. But then the flip side of that is, while we tend to assign prestige to some med schools based on their research or their name brand, which often the name brand is actually tied to the undergraduate institution or a different grad program, right? Like a lot of people know Harvard and Yale and Penn, which certainly have great med schools, but also like are well distinguished for their law and business. And, like that brand is sort of spilling over. So this is just a long way of saying, yeah, Hopkins is hard to get into, but you know what? So's Ohio University, right? Like they're both great schools. They're both hard to get into. So I mean, Devin, in a way, I feel like that's some humility on your part, because the way you worded this question makes me think that you don't want to ride your dad's coattails, and that's awesome. But I don't think it works that way. Someone in the comments joked, "Oh, it's probably because your dad gave the hospital a couple $1 million," and maybe your dad did. But barring that, like if your family name is not on a building, you probably got there on your own merits. So congrats.
Yeah. I remember one year we had a faculty member's son who was applying to UT Southwestern. We interviewed him. He had a great application and was, a really fantastic guy, did well in the whole process. And I remember taking him aside at orientation. And I looked him in the eyes and I said, "You did this on your own. This had nothing to do with your father." I thought it was super important that he know that this was not any kind of legacy, thing that was going on here, that he did the hard work. He got it. And I think he appreciated that. And it was a good word. So, but anyway.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I've read your interview book, Dr. Gray, but I am still wondering how long I should spend for each response to a question on average. Would you say 1 to 2 minute response and elaborate if given a follow-up? It's funny. Everyone asked this question because I didn't answer. I didn't talk about it in the book because there is no answer, right? The answer needs to be as long as it needs to be and no longer. That's the answer.
These quantitative science people, what's the deal with that?
Yeah. What is the standard deviation for how long how long you should answer? Yeah, no.
All right. Well, I'm going to go a slightly different way. I mean, and this is the way experts work, right? Sometimes there's still a little bit of dissent. I agree there's no rubric, and yet 1 to 2 minutes is way longer than you think it is, Ramsey.
Yep.
And if you are dead set on a rubric, I think you should push yourself to a little shorter than what you just said. It's much easier. Now, not every single question, not every single time. But if you're thinking 2 minutes is a default,
it's too long. Yeah.
Yeah. Spend some time watching people's eyes when you talk for 2 minutes. I mean, I just did it. And halfway through, I was like, shit, Rachel. Like, sorry about my language. Oh, we're going to have to edit me out.
Whoopsies.
You went too long. You went too long, Rach. And I mean, yeah. So just think about tightening it up. Just consider that shorter might be better.
So part of my struggle with this question is that, to me, what this tells me is that Ramsey and everyone who asks this question is preparing for their interviews by scripting out answers and then seeing how long that response is.
That's
that
right.
is absolutely not
Worst
how you
way.
should be preparing your responses.
Very good point.
Think about questions. Think about bullet points, the highlights of the things that you would want to bring up in a response, and remember the bullet points. And then let your brain, it's a magical supercomputer, let your brain fill in the space as you go on interview day.
Yep. Great advice.
I'm going to make a banner.
You should take that show on the road.
You should have a live weekly Q&A. Oh.
Yeah.
All right. Interview prep should be bullet points, not scripts. Another saying we like to say is the interview should be a coffee conversation. So just chat.
Now, in the case of an MMI, right, where you're in a station scenario, that type of thing, then, you might be told you're going to go in and talk for 4 to 6 minutes or whatever. So it really also depends on the interview type.
Yeah. That's true.
That's a good
I
point.
also sometimes in interviews tell people how long I want them to respond for, partly to set the time and partly to see if they follow instructions. Maybe I'm mean like that, but sometimes I'll say, please give me about a 1 minute background on you to see if they can finish. And that doesn't mean 1 minute and 10 seconds is in trouble, but it means that if they're hitting minute 3 or 4, I'm going, nope.
Do you ever do the opposite? Like, tell me about your research in 10 seconds.
10 seconds, no, that's hard on people. I have found that even well-spoken people, if you say, can you do it in 10 words or less, they still answer with 100 words.
Yep.
All right.
I am a non-trad teacher. Hello, Derek, and will now be taking charge of our pre-health club and volunteering club at our school. Awesome. Should I send schools an update with this activity? So the dreaded update question. We should get another URL for shouldisendandupdate.com. Scott, at UT Southwestern, what was your update policy there? Do you remember?
We didn't really have an update policy per se. We had, we would take, we would get letters and stuff and things like that. But basically, we didn't instruct students one way or the other. Now, this was, a little bit different time, and so it was a little bit different then in terms of. But we didn't have a real policy. But I know a lot of schools, they're going to accept whatever you send in. They're going to scan it into their electronic file. But in terms of updates, I think it has to be substantive for it to be impactful. And if you're just saying, "Oh, I'm continuing, to take classes and I'm taking microbiology this semester," and stuff like that, we already know half of that anyway, then it's just going to be meaningless and it's a waste of time. But I think in this case, this is pretty substantive, and I would say it's not going to be a negative. So, I would say go ahead and send it in, and, if they accept it, they accept it. If not, then whatever.
Yeah.
They're also just taking over, so they really haven't done much yet.
Yeah,
I
that's
sort
a
of
good
feel
point.
like you should wait a little longer until you have more to write about, basically, about what you've done.
Yeah.
Good point.
That's a really good
That's a good point. Yeah, and the other asterisk to add on to it is each school has their own update policies. Some don't want any updates. Some only want updates on grades. Some only want updates on whatever. So check in with the individual schools.
Yep.
What was it? I think, Scott, you said this a couple of weeks ago. Some of them put their updates in the circular file.
Yeah.
Trash can.
Mm.
Yep.
Sorry, I know that sounds flippant, but it just be mindful that the application is the only thing you're sure they're looking at.
I mean, we used to get the most bizarre things. We had one student who created this whole magazine, like with ads and everything. It was all about him and things he had done, and I mean the hours and hours and hours that he had put in on that, and he mailed it to us, and it was just like, this is a little like overboard here, It was, I mean, we kind of, I hate to say this, but we kind of laughed about it, and and said, this is great, but wow,
It's great and a waste.
yeah, and a waste of time.
Yeah, use that time getting clinical.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, I don't think I did this one. No, not yet.
How important is research experience? Say 5 hours per week over my senior year. I'm considering a project at my school concerning head trauma in vets.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, those veterinarians. So when the dogs don't want those shots, they bang their heads on the cabinets.
I was thinking like a farm vet, like a horse kicking.
I thought he meant veterans,
I think
like
he meant
military. Oh,
Wow, Ryan, our attempts at
he's in rare form today. He's in rare form.
But Verenia hasn't been around my sarcasm long enough. That's
Okay,
awesome.
So back to Troy's great question.
Yes, we're not being flippant, Troy.
What'd you say? Yeah. Well, we're being flippant, but not at Troy.
No. This sounds like very important research. Sorry, you were saying, Rachel. Go ahead.
No, you go, Verenia. It's your turn.
The way I see research is if it is meaningful to you, if you are interested in this, if you are, going to be learning something from this experience that's going to, down the road be helpful for you in what you want to pursue as a doctor, go for it. Don't worry about, how's it going to look on your application? Is it, better for me? Research experience is beneficial on its own. It's not a requirement. And if you get an opportunity to do it and you're interested in it, go for it. But don't look at it as something as, is this going to make me look better? And the topic of your research just on its own is so needed and so important. So I would approach it from that perspective.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agree with you, Verenia.
Thank you.
All right.
Ryan left me a bit verklempt. Okay.
All right, let's see. I'm losing track.
Months away from transitioning out of the Navy, was pre-med prior to joining, back at it for the last year, got my BA before I joined. How can I get back into the full swing of it? Post-bac, master's, thanks, says Carlos.
Well, number one, Carlos, thank you for your service to the United States in the Navy. We really appreciate what you've done. But what I would say to that is, I definitely think you need to kind of get back into the rhythm of being a student. And I think that you could go a post-bac route or a master's route. Either one would be appropriate. Some of it kind of depends on kind of what your grades and stuff look like in your BA in terms of if you're going to be a good fit for the post-bac program that you're looking at. But I would say either one of those, let other things guide you in that in that regard. The cost, the location, what's going to be the best location for you, what's going to be the best in terms of cost, things like that you can consider. You may have Navy benefits that will help you with paying on some of these things with regard to, for example, some states have even supplements to as Texas supplements to the veterans benefits that are state run benefits. So look at everything that's involved and choose something to work for you. But I definitely think you could go either one of those routes. It would be very helpful in terms of getting back into the sort of rhythm of things.
All right. I want to circle back. We'd had the question before about legacy, and one of the students chimed in, and I'm all for students sharing expertise because a lot of you guys are crazy well informed, but this one rankles me a little. So just want to correct it for anyone reading. Sibida, I'm not sure how to say your name. What do you think, Ryan?
Sure.
Sibida.
Yeah, it might not be a name. It could just be just a user. Yeah. So in general, med schools hold it against you for having a doctor parent. Not sure about legacy schools. And that's just false.
Yeah, it's just bullshit.
Yeah.
Oh, you need it.
Right.
You need one of those that says when you say a curse word.
Bleep across the face there.
Yeah. Really, I would say potentially what this student is getting at, this person is getting at, is students who haven't gone out and researched for themselves and gotten their own experiences and proven to themselves to tell their own story about why they want to be a physician, and only apply based on my daddy's a doctor, my mommy's a doctor, therefore I want to be a doctor, then yes, that is a bad application. It's not that the parent being a physician is being held against the student. It's that the student didn't do their own work in finding out if they want to be a physician, reflecting on their own journey to tell the admissions committee why they're doing this.
Yeah. Yes, and the same thing would apply to anyone else who failed to get clinical and failed to reflect.
That's right.
Correct.
And I think, my experience is that is so rare, that we, if a student has a doctor parent, I think often they are more careful to go out and do their own homework and stuff like that. I see very few students who depend on mommy and daddy. And so I think that, I just don't agree at all with the premise of that statement.
Yeah. I will often say, whether it's on application renovation or mission accepted, if a student has a parent who's a physician, I'll mark that as like a little note in my head, and I'll be a little bit extra critical to make sure, did they do their own research? But it's the same question an admissions committee is asking any student. Did you do your homework? Did you get clinical? Did you get shadowing? And I would say it's a big mistake if you have a parent who is a physician to not mention it anywhere. And then it's like, it doesn't come up anywhere because a lot of times your story is incomplete and it's not your truth and you're hiding behind it. And a lot of pieces aren't necessarily connecting. I've seen it way too often when I talk to students and I'm reading a personal statement and things just aren't connecting right. And then I'll remind myself, I'm like, oh, I didn't ask what your parents do. I'm like, oh, my dad's a doctor, my mom's a doctor or whatever. And then I'm like, oh, that makes much more sense now. These little like jumps that you're making make much more sense. Let's add like a sentence somewhere, anywhere, just to say that you were exposed to healthcare growing up because mom's a doctor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
I just think sometimes they're super cautious about that and they don't, they go the other direction,
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Alrighty, here we go. So I am 21 and I am currently doing my bachelor's in microbiology. It's my third semester or second year. I want guidance for what kind of opportunities I should look for during my 4-year BS and for the future.
Love this question. You want to show them the roadmap?
Here's the roadmap. So they would be in their second year. So as you come down here, you can see that this demo account is set to start medical school in 2024. I believe that's how we have it set up here. We can check the profile, and we can come in here and see that our target med school start year is 2024. And just to show you how this works, I'll change it to 2025, and
Gotta save.
presto changeo. We go back to the roadmap, and now the dates are now based on 2025 start year. And so volunteering, and we give a little blurb about volunteering and clinical experience, because not all volunteering is clinical. We have some blurbs about shadowing and activities and most meaningful stuff later on as you start to prepare for your applications. So that's just a very brief thing. I mean, you can just use Google and go say, hey, like, what are good activities for pre-med students? And get lots of great information out there. But at the core, to answer the question, why do you want to be a doctor? We feel like you need clinical experience and shadowing to put yourself around patients, put yourself around doctors to help tell that story.
Yep. Oops, wrong person. There you go. And Scott, Dr. Wright had mentioned this earlier, but we will be having a session in early October that's essentially a pre-med launch. So, you might be a first year or second year, you might be a career changer, but if you're early to being pre-med, we're going to have a session just for you. And again, I don't have a dedicated URL for that, which clearly I should have. But for now, if you just go to map.com and sign up for our newsletter, we'll make sure you get the invite to that session.
Definitely.
All right. Probably got time for one more.
Yeah.
Let's take a look.
How early can I ask for letters of recommendation? Great question. Common question that we get. Let's say you're a first year student. You have the best chemistry professor. You hit it off with her. You go to office hours every day, whatever, and you want a letter of recommendation from that professor. Vernia, what should that student do?
So we recommend that you start getting your letters of recommendation in the year that you're applying. So maybe that January, February, that spring semester before you're applying if you're still in school. Or, but having said that, you're just taking this class now, let's say, and you're in your first year of college. It's a little early, but you want to stay in touch with that professor. Show a genuine interest in what they're doing. Like Dr. Gray was just saying, go to their office hours, make sure they get to know you well. And ask them, hey, is it okay if, I come to you in the future to ask for a letter of recommendation, just to kind of, give them a heads up that you're going to be doing that. The important thing, though, is to maintain those relationships in a genuine way, in an authentic way, not in a way that's just like, hey, I just need a letter from you.
Yep.
Great.
Great.
Sounds good.
All right. I think we can wrap up here.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Ask the Dean now on Wednesdays, 1 p.m. Eastern, every week for free on the mapped.tv and premed.tv channels, going live on both of the YouTube channels that we have, as well as Instagram Live. I have my phone here streaming as well. Thank you for all of the great questions.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get so many students coming here every week, hopefully getting all the advice they need to have a successful application cycle for free to help them get into medical school. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
thank you all.
Best
Thank
wishes,
you.
everybody.
We'll
luck,
see you
all.
next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.